I'm here because the last 2 months we had a couple storms that were very significant. But we're here instead because we've had several storms in the last several years where this has happened. And I know several of us said it was February, that this is going to continue to happen. And since then it's happened a couple more times. Each time we lose power for a significant time, you're losing money, whether it's food in the refrigerator, money to buy a generator, which is okay because over time it pays for itself, but you have to put gasoline in that generator every day. You lose time off from work. Lots of people had to go home every day, take time off from work to fill those generators. Tragically, we had a couple of deaths this last time where people are moving the generators in the house. So I started to think, well, maybe we should think about burying these lines wherever possible. There's a lot of bedrock in Connecticut, so it's not going to be feasible in every spot. There are pros and cons to this, and one con is the expense. And we always hear the $3.6 million per mile to bury them versus $800,000 per mile above ground. But I kept thinking, that's not apples to apples if we really factor in every single thing that we lose. Of course, you can see Tom Dorsey will tell you things. It costs a lot of money, and that may end up, and you could ask him in the question session, who's going to pay for that. So I started to ask people around the district, Greenwich, Stamford, how much they lost in each storm. And I was shocked, because I had this figure in my head of about $300 a year, which I think was Milford, one of the towns did a study a while ago, and they said that if they buried all the lines, it would be about $25 a month, which is like $300 a year for several years. That's a lot of money, but if you factor into it what you pay each time there's an outage, and a buddy of mine called me in Stamford, and he said he spent this year alone $1,500 in hotel costs. That's just for a hotel. Certainly, I think the range from all the people I spoke to was anywhere from $500 up to a couple $1,000 for just this year alone.
One of the things that concerns me the most is the aesthetic aspects of burying the wires. And originally, years and years ago, there were basically 2 wires on the poles, maybe 3. And they weren't that disruptive. Now, what you see is a huge mess of wires going to each building. And it's unfortunate that Verizon isn't here, because I think CL&P takes most of the brunt of the aesthetic aspects of the wiring, when in fact they really aren't responsible for it. I think between the cable company and the fiber optics and telephone landlines, it's just gotten to be more and more clutter. I think one of the important points that was made was that it is public policy. We have to make a decision as a community whether or not we think it's important to have these wires underground. We obviously don't run our sewer lines overground. When the North Miami sewer project was completed, each homeowner had to pay $30,000 to fund that project over a period of years through bonding, through tax increases that were spread out over time to accomplish this. Cost of doing underground utilities immediately, all at once, is really not realistic. But we do have to have a policy, we do have to have a plan, we do have to take every opportunity to put wires underground when we're redoing roads, when we're redoing sidewalks. The town is in the process right now of doing a neighborhood plan for all of the different neighborhoods in town. Byram started, and that took a very long time, but it's now complete. Coscob is in the process of beginning a comprehensive plan, and then the various other neighborhoods, Riverside, Old Greenwich, Glenville, will all get comprehensive plans. One of the aspects of the Byram plan was to install new sidewalks, new street trees, new utility light poles and traffic light poles. And the question came up, well, if we're doing all this work and we're digging up all the sidewalks, why don't we get rid of this eyesore which runs right down in front of the historic buildings and is a blight on the historic neighborhood? And the same response arose, it's too expensive, we can't possibly do that. The community insisted that we put it in the plan because we felt that even though we might not be able to find the funds, we didn't want to see all the sidewalks dug up and replaced and new trees and then try to get the utilities underground would have been virtually impossible. Our goal would be to have the engineering work done, have the planning work done, if possible, maybe not even put the wires underground, but put them behind the Main Street commercial buildings so that they're not on the main street and less susceptible to damage from cars and trees. But my goal would be to see that we have a plan and that we have public policy that supports that plan so that moving forward to the future that we have a direction and that we don't always throw up our hands and say it's too expensive.